Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this FP&A Trends webinar, where today we'll be looking at finance transformation from reactive to proactive. My name is Hans Gobin. I'm your facilitator today, and I will be taking you through this webinar. Just so you know, we have over 350 people joining from over 50 countries around the world. So we have got plenty in store for you. What have we got in store? So today we'll look at the key ingredients for successful transformation. End-to-end transformation, a fantastic case study coming from Deloitte, of course, from our panelists. Transforming finance. What about culture, mindset, and behavior? So we'll look at that. We'll do some conclusions and recommendation, and then we're going to have a fantastic Q&A session at the end of it. So now it's a good time for me to introduce my panelists. My first panel member is Eric Merrill, who's Managing Director of Finance and Enterprise Performance at Deloitte Consulting. He's based in Atlanta in USA, and today, as just mentioned, he will talk to us about end-to-end transformation, a case study at Deloitte. Eric, it's fantastic to have you on our panel today. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you, Hans. Excited to be here.
Our next presenter is Valerie Martin, Senior Finance Director of Go-to-Market at Autodesk, based in San Francisco, USA. And today she'll talk to us about transforming finance with culture, mindset, and behavior in mind. Valerie, great to have you with us again today.
Thank you for the warm welcome and introduction, Hans. It's an honor to be here today. I'm excited to share my personal insight and learn from all of you, from Eric, from Hans, and the questions at the panel at the end.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Valerie. If you don't mind turning your webcam off as well. We've got a bit of housekeeping to do before we jump into these fantastic presentations. So let me start by saying or introducing our technology sponsor today is Anaplan. We all know Anaplan. They transform how you see, plan, and run your business with their EPM system. FP&A Trends Group, we now have 32, we are now in 32 cities, 18 countries, 4 continents. You've got the full list there. FP&A Insight, you know what we do. We've got our website, webinars, which is what you're on, LinkedIn group, and our digest. And there's a lot of FP&A education, research, and consulting that we do as well. You can look at all of that on our website. Right, so in terms of housekeeping then, what are we in for? 1 hour is the length of the webinar. We have 2 polling questions, so we really would like to know, what are you doing in your organization that is different to the panelists here? Interactive Q&A session, so you can ask any question you have via the chat box. We're talking about transformation. You can ask question right now if you so wish, or wait till our presenters have presented and then ask questions. The presentation that we are about to share is already available in handouts for you to download if you may wish to do so. If not, you can you will receive a copy of the recording and presentation after the meeting. Please remember, at the end of a meeting, when I close it off, you will get a pop-up survey session. Please give us your feedback. It is very valuable for us. Tell us how we did, and also tell us what are the hot topics you would like to hear from us in the future. So now a very quick scene setting from myself, key ingredient for successful transformation. But before we do that, I'd just like to highlight that Excel still remains a dominant planning tool for 52% of respondents, and this is from our FP&A survey from last year. But that gives us quite a bit of problem though. We have seen that we still spend far too much time on low value add activities, 45, so that's 66%, and we only spending the remainder, which is 34% of our time, doing high level value stuff or value added stuff, where we desire to do around 56% of the time. It still takes a long time to produce a forecast. Of course, we're doing a lot in Excel. That's one of the key reasons why. And you can see 49% of people take around a week to do that. But if you look at 1 to 2 days, that's only 17%. So we're still very, very slow. And the rate of satisfaction of the forecast is still very low at 40%. So very important, FP&A Trends we have the maturity model. This is where you can map yourself and see where you are, and then decide where you want to head. How do you transform yourself? And I think as a conclusion sort of point, we have what are the key success factors of a fantastic transformation. I will personally leave it here because our two fantastic panelists are going to take you through their presentation and cover a lot of these success factors. So that's all from me for now, and I will now hand over to Eric, who's Managing Director of Finance and Enterprise at Deloitte Consulting, and he will take you through his end-to-end transformation and case study. Eric, over to you.
Thank you, Hans. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with everybody today and to share a little bit of a story around what we within Deloitte are experiencing and the journey that we are on from a finance transformation perspective. Usually I'm on the outside of things, helping others with this journey, and was really honored to have the opportunity to help ourselves along this same journey. And so highlighting some of the things that Hans touched upon, we really, as we thought about our finance transformation, we're looking to integrate and improve our planning and forecasting processes, become more real-time and on-demand around reporting and analytics, and also think about the delivery model. One, how do we make it more consistent for our finance business partners across our multiple business units and geographies, but also thinking about as we move, fundamentally out of Excel and into more online, cloud-based, AI-enabled platforms, what are the skills and capabilities that we really needed to have, and how best to organize them to support our enterprise, taking advantage of these capabilities as we move forward. So in brief, we focused on a couple of key areas up front, the periodic forecast, monthly and quarterly cadences, the plan or the annual budget, the future outlook, which is a little longer term in nature, and then the management reporting. How do we get to a much more consistent yet dynamic view of how we are performing as a business? Because as we mentioned at the outset, Hans alluded to Excel being a tool that can be time consuming but yet infinitely flexible. How do we put the right guardrails around that flexibility so that we can have consistency and transparency into performance discussions? If we slide ahead to the next page, please, we'll talk a little bit more around where we really focused. As I mentioned, it's a phased go live we took across our businesses to get our periodic forecast live. We just completed our go live for our annual plan, and our annual plan takes two flavors. It's a high level or an initial plan earlier in the year, and then we refine that as we close the year into a much more detailed plan. And then the management reporting to support executive reviews around those plans and forecasts on a regular basis. And then the long-term plan, which is multi-year in nature and gets refreshed and retouched as we go through the annual process each year. So with that as the context, we want to jump in on the next page into a little bit more of, well, what did we set out to achieve and how did we go about it? We're showing some of the outcomes here, and full disclaimer, I will say that none of these numbers actually represent the numbers of our business. I had to get clearance to show anything, and that was one of the reassurances that I gave our team, was that we wouldn't show real numbers. But you can get the sense from the pictures on the page of what we tried to achieve. We wanted more visual indicators of how our business was trending against plan, against prior year, against prior period forecast. We wanted broader alignment across our major business units that allowed us to have enough flexibility to accommodate some of the additional metrics and measures that each of our businesses might uniquely look at, but also aligned consistently to what our leadership teams needed to have the right insight and information around are our strategies working, how are we progressing against them, and are we able to measure and hold the right leaders accountable with timely information. And so these are just some of the visuals that support those views that we've created, that in the workflow that supports getting to these views. We did use our enterprise value map tool, which is something that we use to organize KPIs and make sure that we're being mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive as we think about how a company should evaluate performance for shareholder return. We focused on creating visuals, trends, charts, and views that had all the right information and context aligned to those KPIs so we could understand what was driving the business. And then we needed these views to be dynamic, the ability to drill in and drill through to really understand the drivers of the business, and to be able to manage multiple scenarios. As anybody who's in planning and forecasting likely knows, the world's been a bit dynamic, a bit disrupted in the last couple of years, and so we needed to build that agility into our platform. One way in which we built in a kind of a steady state barometer, if you will, is through the use of AI and machine learning. And so we used a whole library of algorithms, evaluated which would best fit and project our business trajectory, and didn't just make that a science experiment. We actually embedded that in our process. And so as our business partners plan and forecast, they constantly have reference to a baseline that is machine generated, the ability to capture risks and opportunities, adjustments and events or anomalies against those numbers to foster a better conversation around what are we doing, how are we investing to change the trajectory of the company from business as usual, or where do we need to spur some action where business as usual might get us in trouble in the longer term, and we need to think about and look at things differently and model scenarios accordingly. And so that's really been the impetus of the platform and the process change that we've put in place. Next slide, please. Here's just a drill down on some of those deliverables. So having an automated baseline, which is AI and machine learning driven, using machine learning to help constantly evaluate what and to what priority should we give certain drivers. From an architecture standpoint, we have a combination of a data lake, a data science layer or lab, and a cloud-based planning platform. And we've used that infrastructure to really stitch together the data across our forecast plans at all levels in a cloud-based planning platform. We maintain the ability to drill down and really get underneath both level of organization and line item detail. What does our P&L look like with scenario modeling? And in some cases, used this effort, this transformation, to drive business process change and to improve collaboration across our various businesses. We really wanted to reduce the reliance on email and offline documents, a lot of version control and handoff challenges when you're kind of outside of a workflow. And we really wanted to improve the accuracy and more importantly, the reliability and the transparency of what's happening in our plan and forecast processes. We do keep multiple years and multiple versions in our system. And we did really do all of this through the lens of what process do we want to enable and how are we going to take a user-centric view to the design, meaning that so often, planning implementations will address a fraction of somebody's job and then, struggle with gaining adoption. And so we really looked at this from the lens of what do our finance business partners do, whether they're our corporate business partners or our business unit, in the field business partners, and designing as much of their job as possible and the information that they need to make decisions as possible into the architecture, the tool, and the user experience, so that they'd have an easier time at completing their job in one place as much as possible. Next page, please. A few lessons learned, good practice, things to incorporate into your approach. Live sessions and demos, so embracing the agile thinking of we're not going to wait 6 months till it's done to show you how it turned out. We're going to capture the requirements and stories and then build and show and share and gain feedback. We did have to work through virtual requirement gathering, and that is more than just getting a bunch of people on a Zoom call. It's structuring the discussions to effectively gather feedback when not everybody can be in person. As COVID has relented a degree in the last year or so, we've mixed virtual with more hybrid, which presents its own challenges, but also provides an opportunity to engage a broader audience with still maintaining a cost structure that's effective. Focused on commitment and sign off, making sure not just that leaders are signing off on deep presentations of hundreds of pages of requirements, but actually being able to see brought to life what their requirements and needs and how they're going to be met by the new platform before they agree to move forward. The UX piece I already alluded to, very tailored to the personas and the individuals who are going to be using and needing to incorporate their insights into the plans and forecasts. And then one thing with a number of go lives across a number of businesses, we found that we needed to be intentional about avoiding UAT fatigue or testing fatigue, or even requirements gathering fatigue, to be honest. And so, what used to be addressed more typically with, long extended, weeks in a room and extended office hours, we pivoted towards a more agile, almost on-demand type model. Less duration, more intention. And that's helped us really drive adoption and acceptance of our solution so far. Next page, please. So, the good thing is we've made a lot of progress in the couple of years we've been working on this with getting forecast and planning live. I'd say we still have a decent amount of work to do. We're still working on better integrating our planning calendars across the different financial planning and forecasting use cases. We're still doing some work on long-range planning. We still have some corporate stakeholders that have some unique use cases that we need to solve for that we'll be working on. We're going to improve our integration with target setting and long-term planning. And then we're going to have a backlog of enhancements around our annual plan, which is really around providing more structure and visibility into scenario modeling and initiative investment tracking type capabilities. And so, very excited for where this journey will take, us, Deloitte, as a firm, from our ability to, manage our performance management, if you will, and have, more predictive capabilities through AI and machine learning, but also really focused on putting that in the hands of our business partners so they get value from the AI. It's not at all a position of AI instead of, it's AI with, to raise the capability, reliability, and consistency of all of our planning and forecasting capabilities across our vast business. So I think that's from prepared content, the story. We're really excited about this journey and the rewards and the opportunity for efficiencies and insights that it provides, and happy to share more and share in the Q&A as well if there are questions.
Fantastic, Eric. Great presentation. Absolutely fantastic, and really end to end from the beginning right to the end. And we've learned quite a lot from you today. So thank you very much for that. Let us now listen to or get some insight from our audiences by looking at the first polling question we've got today. So how long does it take you to update your financial plan when there is anything unexpected happening? So any unexpected change in related business drivers. Our financial plan is not driver based. It will have to wait until the next planning cycle, from several days to several weeks, or finally is we just can't change our plan instantly. So if you can vote, please. So here we are asking you, how long does it take you to update your financial plan when there is unexpected change in related business drivers? First option, our financial plan is not driver-based at all. Second, it will have to wait until the next planning cycle. Third, from several days to several weeks. Fourth, I can change my plan instantly. So if you vote, please, I'll give it another few seconds. Fantastic. I am now going to close the voting and I'm going to share the outcome. So 3% said it's not driver-based. 20% it will have to wait until the next planning cycle. 65% from several days to several weeks. 12% we can change our plan instantly. Eric, can I get a little bit of an insight from this poll from you, please?
Sure. I think the consistent theme that seems to resonate with the responses we got here is that planning is while constrained, a loosely constrained process that starts early and ends late. And as soon as the plan is out the door, there are revisions, changes, updates almost as soon as it's done. And so, not surprising to see that perspective shared. I will say that there's probably an opportunity here to focus the activity. I would precede that with an analysis that says, what's really driving that timeline? What's driving that iteration? Is it targets arrive late? Is it revisions to targets? Is it delays in getting certain planning assumptions that are critical to the process, or having different leaders looking for information at different points in time over the air quote planning horizon? But that's where we see companies make a lot of really make a lot of improvements, a lot of times with just a little bit of effort to align the process, align the stakeholders, and put a little deliberate kind of restructuring to the deliverables that are created, and how that timeline maps across the various functions is where we see opportunities for improvement there.
Fantastic, spot on there. And of course, it resonates very similar to the survey sort of results that I shared before. So thank you very much for that insight. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for voting. Now that you've seen Eric's set of slides and presentation, please send in your question for Eric. And it's via the web chat. So please do that. Let me hide this and let us now go through our discussion point we have. So Valerie, can I ask you to come and join us as well? And here we are going to talk about how has technology transformed the way you work. We want to hear from you, Valerie. You're going to take a very different aspect of transformation later on. So let's find out a little bit about technology from yourself, and then we will circle back to Eric. Valerie?
Absolutely, Hans. So technology has really transformed the way we work when we look at providing us tools that really help FP&A to focus on real-time insights. So if I look at our evolution of how we connected our planning and forecast tools together, another success factor that you mentioned, Hans, around integrated process, we have now over 30 finance cases, ranges from go-to-market forecasting, annual planning, long-term forecasting, total spend. And what it really helped us to do is really help support a more thought process about how we could improve speed and quality of insights by really streamlining reporting and have actionable data. Very similar themes that what Eric just shared with us today.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Eric, can I come back to you? Of course, you've shared with us, how you're doing things and what sort of technology you're using. But what are those one or two key major things that has happened to the business using technology?
So I think the big shift was when AI and machine learning first was introduced for forecasting. It was we're going to automate forecasting and replace all the people, give or take a decade ago. And I think that even our point of view nowadays is more, it's human plus machine, and how does the machine change the human's focus and allow them to spend the time on things that they should be good at that a machine's not. So it's a little more symbiotic in terms of the relationship. And I think that's been one big shift. And then I'd say the second, around how technology has transformed the way you work, is it really unlocks an opportunity to collaborate in a way virtually, internationally, that otherwise required a lot of effort. And now it can be as simple as, and for those who have used Teams or SharePoint, it can be as simple as having a shared document with tracked changes in an audit trail, or it can be as advanced as a cloud-based planning tool where multiple people can go collaborate on P&Ls, risks and opportunities, and deciphering inputs from predictive algorithms. But the potential is huge, and it all hinges on humans' ability to get comfortable and understand what they can get out of the technology and how it can help change the way they work, ideally reducing the effort but improving the output.
Fantastic answers. Thank you very much, both. Thank you very much for that. So let us now move on to our second session, which is from Valerie. So Valerie is going to talk to us about transforming finance culture, mindset, and behavior. and Valerie's from Go-to-Market Autodesk. Over to you, Valerie, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Hans. Over the years, I've navigated through various industries. Import-export, I did cosmetics, the beauty industry, but I'm really focusing right now my career on the ever-evolving world of technology. One thing that actually is common and consistent throughout all these sectors is the important focusing on our talent and our people. As we think about finance and transformation, one thing that we really need to do is how do we actually get our teams on this journey to make our impact, better? And what I like to say is, how do we make our impact, we are more impactful together? I currently work at Autodesk. Autodesk is known by being its advanced 3D design, engineering, and entertainment software. My current role at Autodesk is to be the co-pilot of our CMO, so our Marketing Chief Officer, where I'm co-piloting this organization to be more hyper efficient on marketing and really helping the top line growth. So how do we accelerate our revenue with the marketing engine? I'm also leading and crafting our skill sets of the future framework of how we could bring our talent to the next level. As Eric and Hans mentioned, is like, how do we co-partner with technology where we could actually focus on the skills where we could bring additional value to our business? So let's dive into one of the success factor about people and how we could actually make a bigger impact. So next slide, Hans. So why should we transform? So if we imagine a world where we not only keep pace with technology advancement, but we use them to predict and shape future financial trends. Today, we want to discuss why embracing change in finance, it's not just necessarily, it's imperative. If you look at the major shifts that are happening right now in our industry, there's three major ones. One of them is about technology and data, where we're witnessing an explosion of data, where there's a lot of rapid technology growth. And this provides tools for us to get additional insights, empower us to get more information data faster and more than ever. Another thing is about the market dynamics. If you look at the increased complexity and volatility of our business and our modeling tools needs to be more flexible and innovative. And lastly, if you look at our external pressures, from highlighting what we're having it with the regularity demands and the call for sustainability, we're being pushed to redefine our roles and our strategies. So each one of these three areas does represent an opportunity for FP&A to really enhance our impact on the business. And this is how we're going to do it, by being adaptive, innovative, and partner-oriented approach. When I think about predictive analytics and our daily workflows, it's important, like what actually Eric just showcased, it allows us to forecast on, how can we actually shape the future, not necessarily how to keep up. So it's time for us to lead the change. And I do think all of us as leaders, we're ready to embrace this change, but are our teams ready to be on this journey? And how do we get them aligned? So how do we get them aligned? Next slide, please. So if you look at the next slide, the way I look at this and how do I align our teams, I see it as three elements of design, or it could be three ingredients. I see that we need to actually do a top-down culture. How do we get the culture is basically the foundation of how we're driving success for our team. The other one is about mindset. I see the mindset shift as a growth engine. We're not getting necessarily smarter, we're getting more, we focus on things and how we have a new mindset at looking at the information and how can we make an impact. So that's the growth engine. And the last one is behaviors. The behaviors that we actually encourage from our team is really going to promote actions, decision, and making it more quick or adaptive. So this will really drive the agility and speed that we're looking in our teams as we continue to support the business that's constantly evolving. So let's dig deep into the culture. So next slide, please. So as key leaders, we need to integrate the way we do behaviors. So if I look at cultures, there's kind of three ways of looking at it, or there's three things that we're looking at it at Autodesk. First of all, there's a concept of key values. So if you look at how can you drive better income, you need to make sure your team has the ability or the safe environment to ask questions, be courageous, challenge the status quo. So this is where you're going to have better outcomes together, and courageous is actually one of the key values that we promote a lot. Pragmatic is how do we solve problems? So often we have multiple data sets, different ways of looking at it, there's different complexity that we could put at it, but how do we keep it simple where we could be more efficient by committing to quality, not perfection? And lastly, what we try to do is really looking at innovations. How do you challenge your team to look at things differently, pilot, or how to look at problems where you actually keep it simple, but you're looking at different ways of looking at it as thinking the box. So by embedding a new value, the key values that we embed in our culture code, that's also a part of our evaluation for performance. So if you look at what your role is on your goal, but how you execute, by incorporating key values, top downs on how you execute and how you demonstrate it is something that was very important for our culture as we shift our finance organization. Another thing is concept of radical candor. So yes, you could be courageous and give your point of view, but you need a feedback loop. And the only way you could actually do the feedback loop that's actually, where it sticks and people will promote in the safe environment is making sure that you give it direct, but also that you do it where you care. So an example that I actually like to share with my team is that we actually had an offsite a couple of weeks ago, and we each share, one thing that actually we wanted has a positive feedback about a person and something where we think there's an area of improvement by this person. So when we did this round table and all together, at the early stage, it was really uncomfortable to be able to share about things that were positive and negative. But this helped build this concept of trust. And with this trust, more and more when we're working on solving problems, this radical candor is there. And this is where it promotes a different point of view where we could actually enable change and actually make better decision based on different points of view. Lastly, there's this concept of even over. So if you look at our culture, as we continue to leverage technology and we need things quicker, we need to actually think quicker. So we are empowering our teams by actually this concept of even overs. Even overs are like, if you imagine two good things, which one do you empower your team to make a choice on or navigate or towards to? If you look at general FP&A, you have this concept of, do you prefer compliance over speed? Obviously, we like compliance, and that's, it's a gimme. But what about this concept about learning mindset versus successful practice? How do you empower somebody that's very mature in their role to actually promote somebody to learn on something new or a new concept? Or if you look at business partnering, how do you look at the concept of partner strategically versus just provide what your stakeholders want? How do you provide data where actually promote kind of thought process or different lens versus actually just giving a service provider? Other ones that we could leverage is this concept of agility over robustness, or design for long scale over short-term quick fix, or transparency over cohesion. Things like that will actually give this concept where your organization will be more agile and will create this culture where we could actually constantly transform together. Now let's move to the growth engine on the next slide, and how can we actually focus on mindset? So as you have the environment where people could actually challenge, look, and learn, while you actually get the mindset. And the mindset is really where there's a shift that needs to happen. As Eric and Hans mentioned today about with AI, we need to partner with technology and really leveraging those skills where we could focus, where we could actually do what AI can do. And one of them is actually partnering skills. So if you partner with technology, you partner with your business, then how do you through this concept of trust? How do you become co-pilots where you're leading in business decision, where you're an advocate for actually the business lead that you're doing today? Another one will be, if you look at skill sets, we have this framework about soft skills and also analytic skills. But if I want to double click on the soft skills, if you go beyond the partnering, what about how you manage your team of looking at more as a consultative coming in the business and say, okay, I have this problem statements I need to do. I need to look at revenue opportunities or make it more efficient. how do you frame the problem statement where you do it more efficiently? So the framing is really around the strategy thinking. So if your teams are actually looking at a lot of stuff and how to prioritize, if you could actually get them to focus on how do you frame this problem, how do you have the strategic lens on it? Once you have that, really, how do you double click on the data-driven problem that you're doing? An example is like, are you looking at the right KPIs? Are you overwhelmed in the data? What are really trying to solve? So you really focus the problem statement and where you could get insights. And the last one for me, this is kind of the key one, is how do you tell that story to execs, or how do you actually promote action? So if you take information that becomes, insights with the key skills, how do you take those insights and actually frame it in a way where you make decisions? And the storytelling and executive communication is really where you'll see finance make a huge impact in business decisions and how can we influence the outcome. Lastly, it's great to have the great mindsets, and you could promote any training and learning curve or behaviors, but you really need to have this concept of ambassadors. Ambassadors could be a cohort of cross-functional sub-finance teams. It could be a specific skill set. And how do you promote those ambassadors within your org where you can actually skill that mindset shift around the organization? An example we have is we are having a team offsite in a couple of weeks where we're doing a workshop of actually pushing down certain skill sets or problem statements so we could actually tackle them together and learn together so we could apply them in our day-to-day. And how do we inspect it is how do we make sure we follow up on that project so we actually understand our key learnings. Now, we talked about culture, we talked about mindset. So what about, our next step is, if you look at the other one, is like, okay, what about behaviors? So if you look at the world of finance, we're used to have things in a more rigid way of we having certain, processes to tier your balance sheet. But what about testing concepts? It could be an example right now. If you look at the marketing organization, there's this concept of A/B testing. Do we test on the market if the color blue or red sticks? What about applying that in finance? Can we test a cohort of customers to see if actually the behavior moves, if we actually do it differently, or is that in an area that we still need to invest? Or is that continue to be as is because nothing is breaking? So testing more and more and leading by curiosity is a super skill that we need to actually have as a behavior to be more adaptable and create action. Another one is understanding our drivers. Like there's a lot of drivers out there, but understanding your leading indicators, your lagging indicators, which one are the top 3 that we're going to talk at C-Staff, and how does that cascade down to the business? So having a common set of indicators, understanding our drivers will give us a common language where we could actually shift things and pivot things when things are needed. And lastly is like, as we have, all these behaviors and mindset shift, we really need to celebrate your wins. So we're all humans driven by behaviors. And basically, if we celebrate our wins, we also need to celebrate our learnings and celebrate where we learn and how do we share best practice. So by having all of that, it's going to really create a behavior that's going to stick and be repeatable. So how do we close it out? So next slide. So how I bring this all together, it's actually an interesting concept. So if I look at the concept of culture, mindset, and transforming, it's really about these elements. So your culture, as we learned them at, where my experience is that if you push a new culture, it has to be top down and it has to be embedded in culture codes, and your employees need to be evaluated on their performance on the how, definitely on the culture and the behavior. The mindset, you don't get more intelligent over years, but you need to leverage technology and you need to have this learning mindset where you actually could bring a point of view to the table and be a co-pilot. It's really driving and leaning in. As for the behavior, when you look at our behavior, it's really getting, the reward based on focus and impact. What can actually is making an impact on the business, not what you like to do or what is actually important in the past. And this is actually creating that feedback loop where you could continue to learn and actually be, more directional at where you need to go. And it will drive to action. Beyond the numbers, Finance, we tend to be numbers, but how do we think behind the numbers? Let's test stuff. Let's be curious. Let's celebrate our wins and celebrate our learnings. And all of this, when it comes together, it'll get us more agile, and our speed of delivery will be quicker. And this will definitely average basically us to do decisions quicker and actually have this, this framework about decisions. Now, the even overs is a concept that was super successful for us. So I would highly encourage, looking at your organization, and yeah, you could apply them 2 years. So thank you for the time. And this is how I think on this journey of transformation, how you could actually bring the people along to make sure that we actually are more impactful and we're leaning in finance. Thank you, Hans.
Thank you very much, Valerie. A great presentation, of course, and taking us through the softer side of the transformation. And of course, without people, there is no transformation. And this slide really sums it up very, very well. So thank you very much for that. Let us now move and look at our polling question, which we have next. So let us hear from you, people in the audience, our FP&A people. Are you planning to introduce an integrated finance planning technology for your organization? I already have one, is the first one. The second one is, yes, I'm planning to introduce this year. Third, I'm thinking about it. And fourth, no, not planning anything. So if you can please cast your vote. Are you planning to introduce an integrated finance planning technology for your organization? First one, I already have one, which is fantastic. Second one, yes, we are planning to introduce this year. Third one, planning on it and thinking about it. And fourth one, we are not planning anything at this point in time. I'll give it another couple of seconds. Also, ladies and gentlemen, please remind you, keep sending your questions. We've got some fantastic questions to go through. We will try and answer all of your questions, a few today, but the rest will be answered via email. I'm now going to close the poll and share what we've seen. So 37% fantastically say they already have a planning tool. 11% are going to introduce one in the next year. 41% are thinking about it, and 11% not planning anything at all. Valerie, can I ask you for some insight on this, please?
Yes, sure. So if you look about the planning tool, I think this is actually amazing that we see that everybody's thinking about it or actually are evolving it. But I think the concept of evolving is actually key in here, because it's all about a journey and how we actually make sure we keep up with the business, or actually, by leveraging technology in one place to plan, how we could actually drive and actually be a leader in it. So I love these results.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. The fact that 37% are already on it, 11% are going to introduce it next year, that's great. So really, really encouraging here. So let me now hide this and share with you what our next session is. So next, we're going to talk about one of the biggest challenges of transformation is change. How do you deal with it? So Valerie, if you would like to come on the webcam, and let us go to Eric first. Eric, change, how did you deal with it within your transformation? Can we have some understanding, please?
Sure, and I'd say that, change is always the elephant in the room. And I think sometimes people shy away from it, thinking that, if you build it, they will come. And some people try to take it on, but, miss gaining a true understanding of like, what is the fear, uncertainty, doubt element really about? Or what is the sacred practice that's being held onto, and why? And as you might imagine, in my world, we are a global partnership with thousands of leaders who all think that they're all have their opinion and are entitled to it. This may be the way to say it. And so, one of our biggest challenges was trying to understand who was really going to take the helm and help influence their peers in many cases, that the change was a good thing and could be a reasonable voice to, and a better set of ears to hear what the resistance to change was, or what the concerns were, and to help formulate a productive and proactive plan to address it. Who needs to be engaged? What is what are the key topics we need to make sure we're hearing and addressing? Because a lot of times programs start off with, hey, this is what we're going to change. We understand what the impacts are. We're going to go message that we think the people that matter. And all it takes is missing a stakeholder group or misinterpreting a concern, and all of a sudden, your messaging falls on deaf ears, and you start to build more resistance than inertia. So that's probably the big watch out from my perspective, is make sure you understand the stakeholders, make sure you understand kind of the leading indicators or the inertia in the culture that you're trying to overcome, and make sure that you strategically recruit the right plants, the right stakeholders to help embed the change in the organization, not just explain it to the organization.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Spot on. Valerie, what would your answer be?
It's interesting because I'm going to add to what Eric mentioned, is that, what I love is about this concept of accountability. So as we continue looking at what's the change, what the driver are, and who's, accountable for answering that questions, it's really also answering the question, the so what. So the so what does it mean to the business? The so what does it mean to your teams? And how do we come together with telling the story? So about continuous learning and training is something that we do to continue dealing with change. How do we tell the story in a way we know who's accountable and answer the question, the so what? And also embracing technology and make sure that we're agile. So promoting those behaviors too.
Absolutely right as well. So thank you very much both for your insight on this question. Let us now move on to key takeaways, which is where we're going to talk about some concluding points. So Valerie, please come back on the webcam, and we will start with Eric. Eric, couple of key conclusion points from yourself, Eric.
I think the key ones, that really come out of all the discussion that we've had today is that technology for the sake of technology, while it's cool and becoming a necessity to drive effective processes and to build finances insights, is not in and of itself going to transform the way work happens, is not going to automatically bring along all the key stakeholders or make your finance business partners comfortable and capable to take advantage of all the great capabilities that you're putting in place. And so I think that it has to be a holistic approach. It has to have people, process, technology, and data as pillars of the program. And they're all equally important. If you shortchange one of those pillars, the value that you will be able to achieve through your effort will decline significantly. And getting all the pillars right is hard. It takes a lot of coordination, a lot of focus, and a lot of diligence.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Valerie, yours?
I think for me, change is constant, but it's also not a destination, it's a journey. So as we continue to embrace the technology and the tools and getting our team on this journey, it's all about how we could actually, be leaders of driving impact and action. So the way I see it is really how we could actually be really co-pilots versus actually being there and actually kind of being dragged along. I think it's a great opportunity for finance right now to really step in and lean in, leveraging the tools where we could actually be more efficient and more impactful.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much both for the conclusions. And we now move on to our fantastic Q&A session. So ladies and gentlemen, keep sending your questions. We will try and answer a few now, but of course, all of it will be answered via email anyway. So Eric, the first question to you, and I think we will try and attempt 2 questions each before running out of time. Eric, thank you very much for sharing your transformation journey. One question from one of our members is, can you elaborate a little bit more on the enterprise value map tool that you mentioned? I think it was 3rd or 4th slide, please.
Sure. So if you think about what drives company results, we typically break it into, revenue and growth opportunities, cost and related drivers, asset efficiency, and then how you manage your stakeholder environment. And within each of those, there's a series of of operational and process topics that you would then want to associate, key measures or KPIs against. And those might look different at the corporate executive level than they do at the business unit headquarter level than they do on on the plant floor or for in our cases in like the local office. And so it's really just taking a deliberate and structured approach to how you architect the KPIs and performance management structure of how you're going to assess and measure your business and your business performance and direct your attention towards where and what you need to solve and when and in what priority. And that'll look a little different depending on each company's industry. Some would be more asset intensive, others are going to be more services and people focused, some will be very product oriented, R&D heavy, etc. So it tends to tilt the emphasis of kind of which branch of the value map do you focus on. But it's an organizing structure that we use to make sure that we're being comprehensive when we think about performance.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for elaborating on that. Really great. Valerie, can we come to you for your first question, please? Great presentation. Thank you very much for taking us through. And it's much more around culture. You talked about promoting courage in your organization. Can you give us a couple of examples? Because we find that quite hard within our organization to promote courage. Anything you've done that we can learn from, please?
I think you're not the only one, or nobody's the only one. Courage is something that we did challenge and learn and grow. I'll give you a couple examples of what we tested and tried. So the element of courage usually starts of creating an environment of psychology safety, where you create an environment, it could be, in your team, where you start sharing on yourself of areas where you made a mistake and how do you learn from it and how you got out of it, and actually showing from tops down about your learning moments, and having the team like being comfortable of like, how do we apply learnings and how do we work together? So we did a lot of concept of demonstrating vulnerability, making sure that we share also as leaders where we've learned and what was our careers, how do we move it forward? It really has to be a top down, but we also need to celebrate this concept of asking questions and actually learn as leaders or managers how to promote those questions in a way where you're not putting the employee on the spot. So it's always like, I'm seeking to understand or ask questions that will promote comfort, and then also you celebrate those. So just by getting that muscle of getting that environment, understanding what's the driver, understanding what's holding back, let's brainstorm together, it will create this promotion where having a point of view and really challenge us to do codes is what we do. One key thing that actually I'm doing right now, and I'll close out because I feel like it's a topic I could talk for a long time, is about keep an environment and state what it is. We have 10 minutes right now. I want a debate mode. Let's debate this. I want to see each one point of view. I want to see the both side of the coins, and let's close it out. Or, okay, this is a time where I got your advice. This is a decision I'm making. I'm moving forward. So very clearly stating, is it debate mode or what we could learn, really helped the courage.
Open and free to talk really is what we're talking about, and there's no questions. That is a silly question, as we always say. So thank you very much. Very, very informative indeed. So Eric, can we come back to you? And again, one of the question, and the same question is going to go to Valerie again. Thank you for sharing your transformation journey. You talked about a holistic approach. You talked about the key pillars. Of course, there's a lot of challenges throughout the whole journey. Is there one or two you can identify with us and help us understand how you overcome them?
Sure. So I think the first and foremost, for us at least, was what is the role of an insert generic technology advancement here? So what is the role of a cloud-based planning, AI-enabled forecasting process or platform in our future state? And what we found was that the challenge for folks was that they knew how to use Excel, they knew how to upload stuff into the current planning tool, they knew how to get their reports done, And so the real challenge was, I like to think about it as like walk a mile in my shoes. The big challenge was for us as a project team transforming the process and the technology to really be able to put ourselves in the shoes of our finance business partners and gain an appreciation for everything they have to accomplish on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And only by doing that were we able to think about things that I would say in a traditional planning implementation, you're like, oh, give me the requirements, here's the tool. I enabled you to complete the critical path of getting a forecast done. But I made your life harder because now you have to go manually do a whole bunch of stuff outside of that and outside of that tool to inform how you're going to create a forecast. And so, I think taking that more, complete view of the human, of the persona approach allowed us to get closer to what, it's like you joke about like a baby only a mother could love, right? Like we got to the point where we were designing a system that not just the people who implemented could love it, but the people who were going to be asked to use it could actually see their input reflected in it. And that was huge in terms of setting us up for the potential and future adoption of the platform. And then I would say the other one that, also kind of branches off of that is change is always intimidating. I mean, we talk about using AI and machine learning models, and all of our leaders and finance business partners were struggling with, well, does that mean like how do I work with that? You're telling me that you're going to use that. That sounds like instead of me, not something I can do or get value out of without putting in a ton of extra work to figure out what it is. And so again, it pushed us, in another area where we were trying to innovate, to think about how do you translate, kind of what's cool, new, and next into, what's in it for me as the person who's going to own and have to use or even maintain those capabilities tomorrow. And so those are probably related, but two, kind of nuanced examples.
Yeah, no, there's fantastic examples because, of course, we all face very similar challenges within most transformation, if not all transformations. So thank you very much for that, Eric. Valerie, can we come to you? And the question is the same. So what were the key challenges, one or two, however you want to get through, and how did you deal with it within your transformation?
Yes, so any transformation has a lot of key challenges. For us was, we have a complex organization, different business units, so it's really understanding the source of truth. And once we actually combine those sources of truth, it's like, okay, how do we have a common definition of those KPIs and matrix or information, but also like making sure that we know which questions is answering. So when we looked at how designing our tools is like, okay, well, there's one thing where the business wants to see it in different dimensions and slice and dice that created a lot of data. So if we have the source of truth, how do we get the common definition? But what's the real business question that we're trying to answer? But it's not just for that small piece of the pie. How does that cascade from top down of answering something at COO level all the way down to the business? So understanding and labeling those questions was super important for us. And I would say another thing that I think that helped us a lot in our planning. So as we integrate and do our tools and we know our dimensions and our definitions, one thing that we added is our confidence in our assumption levels. So in the past, we could look at trends, and trends are easy to predict, but now we don't, and things are changing. So in order to have confidence of what you want to look and make sense of it, we implemented this concept of confidence. Is this assumption high confidence? Is this assumption likelihood, or this one is a wild card? That really enables us to actually bucket our insights in a more predictable and impactful way.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Great challenges, and of course how you dealt with it is fantastic. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for in terms of Q&A, but please, we've still got a couple of minutes for me to round it up. So please keep sending them. We will answer them via email directly to you. So a couple of things for your diary here, please. We have the next webinar. It's going to be on human and AI synergy in FP&A. A lot of what we talked about. 8th of May. The next one after that is Dynamic Shift, Mastering AI-Infused Predictive Planning and Forecasting on 15th of May. Sorry, just moving forward. thank you very much for participating in all our FP&A Trends survey. You've seen some of the slides that I shared with you. They come from this. So please, this is going to be out soon as well. So please participate. And of course, you will get a copy in your email. So please do give us some insight as to what you're doing within your organization. And finally, I would like to start by saying a big thank you to our technology sponsor, Anaplan, today, without whom this would not have been possible. So thank you, Anaplan. Of course, without our two fantastic panelists, Eric and Valerie, for great insight, great presentation, great material, and for great answers to all of your questions. And finally, thank you to our FP&A community for attending the meeting today. Just to let you know, when I close the meeting, you will get a feedback form. So please give us some feedback and let us know how we did. And also let us know what you would like to hear from us in the next session. It is now a good time for me to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you had a great time with us today. And this is where our webinar ends today. So thank you very much for being with us. Goodbye, everyone. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.